Moving over to the defensive side of the ball, this unit struggled against the run in 2023, ranking 130th, but it did very well against the pass, ranking 36. How did the defensive unit as a whole look in the spring, and what did they do this offseason to try to shore up the run defense?
Yeah, the defensive side of the ball, I think the run defense is going to be probably the weak point as of now. There could be moves made, but as of right now, I would say it's probably the weakest part of the roster on defense. Um, there's definitely some guys that are coming back and some guys that they brought in that maybe can make some plays, but I think you're looking for a lot of production out of guys that aren't going to have a lot of playing time. I think Itanosa Rubin has versatility, play inside and out. Aaron Beckwith has been with the team for a little bit now. He's going to be in a much bigger role. Same with Sean Bray Jackson. They look to be the two starting defensive tackles in the run game. So we'll see if they can get those run stuffs on first and second down and set up pass rushing. And then Tyler Martin's going to be a leader. He's been with Don Brown since the Arizona days. So Tyler Martin at linebacker is going to be huge in the run game to make sure that he can use his leadership and experience to coach the guys up and make sure that everybody's on the same page. And then Darion Craig at linebacker is another guy who made a lot of plays in the run game during the spring game, especially. He was getting in the backfield and filling some gaps. So it's going to be a unit that needs a lot of attention and maybe even some guys. I know Don Brown maybe talked about a few guys in the portal because they do have a few open spots left. So we'll see what happens there. But like you mentioned, 130th against the run is not good, and they need to make sure that they improve there. And I think that's something that they're going to focus on over the offseason is making sure that they're all set for the fall.
Well, speaking of this run defense, let's start with the guys up front along the defensive line. They lose NFL prospect Billy Wooden and J.B. Brown, but do return Zakudo Ngwanigu, Aaron Beckwith, and Luce Julian, and bring in Tim Grant Randall from Eastern Michigan, Itanosa Rubin from Georgia Tech, and Jalen Hudson from Wake Forest. How did that unit look this spring, and did anyone stand out to you?
Well, you mentioned Billy Wooden. He probably was, in my opinion, the best player on defense for the team in 2023. So that's going to be a huge loss for them. I think they got some big shoes to fill there. I mean, you talk about the running back room having a few losses. This Billy Wooden is the guy. He was tearing stuff up for the defense all season. So they're definitely going to have a big try, or have to try a lot to fill his shoes. And you mentioned Iguanagu. Him and Jalen Hudson were on the edges a lot, generating a lot of pressure off the edge. So I think the pass rush should be pretty set. Don Brown also is a very blitz-heavy guy. He can dial up those blitzes, and they've got a lot of guys at the Viper position. You know, not necessarily linebacker, not necessarily safety, but Don Brown's got that Viper position where it's kind of an in-between guy, and those guys will definitely play a lot in the run defense as well. But the front seven is going to be, like I said, maybe the weak point of the team. But I think there's definitely some guys up front that might have the capability. They just need a little bit more time, and hopefully they get that over the summer to be ready coming up against these SEC schools that they got to play up in the upcoming season. But it'll be interesting to see. I think the front seven is going to be really. I don't know. It's definitely something that they've been working on, and definitely something that Don Brown has made a focal point. Like, we know that the front seven is a work in progress, and we're going to get it there. So we'll see what they do. Maybe they'll bring in some guys, like I said. So
we've talked about them a little bit, and kind of the back half of that front seven, the linebacking group. They lose second leading tackler Najee Logan to the portal, and Jerry Roberts Jr. to graduation, but they return third leading tackler Jarrell Johnson and Jalen Stewart, as well as others. How did the linebacker group look this spring, and did anyone kind of step up to fill Logan's vacated role?
Yeah, I think Tyler Martin, like I said, is going to be the leader of that group. He's got that experience with Don Brown, but Jarrell Johnson, as you mentioned, he seems to be filling those bigger shoes, seems to be covering well, maybe fitting the run. And like I said, Darion Craig was definitely making some plays in the run, had a few TFLs in the spring game, and was filling run gaps pretty well over the course of the spring. Miles Turner should be getting some playing time as well. And then the Vipers, like I said, they're basically included in the linebacker room. They're going to be all over the place, filling the run, blitzing off the edge, and it's a big part of Don Brown's defense to have those guys that have that versatility. But it'll definitely be a group effort. I think there's not really one guy that's going to be standing out above everybody, but I think Tyler Martin will be the difference. He'll be the leader. He'll be the guy coaching everybody up and making sure that everybody's on the same page and making sure that they can play to the best of their ability.
The defensive backfield returns some production and leading tackler Teray Powell, Tyler Rudolph, and Isaiah Rutherford, but they do lose cornerback Jordan Mahoney to the portal and safety Juan Lua to graduation. How did that unit look in the spring?
Yeah, I'd say the DBs are definitely the strength of the defense. I mean, it's hard to not say that after saying the front seven's the weak point, but the DBs are very strong. I think you mentioned the loss of Jordan Mahoney and Juan Lua. Those guys were starters basically game in and game out, so there were some shoes to fill there. But Teray Powell and Isaiah Rutherford will be huge leaders for those new guys coming in. They've been with the team for a few years now, and we're solid starters as well. I think my guy that I noticed the most was Lake Ellis, starting at cornerback over the course of the spring, coming in from Bryan FCS school, but he really looked good. He was covering really well, covering every receiver down the depth chart at a high level, and I think that he's set to take over as one of the better corners on this team. They have Deshaun Watkins, who's 6'4", definitely a wild card. He's got incredible length, good speed. His mechanics are a little bit here and there. I've seen him get burned a few times, but seems to be physical at the line of scrimmage, pressing, and good in the run game as well. But he'll be a wild card. I think having that size at corner is going to be interesting and huge if he can make that work. Having a 6'4" corner, like you're talking about a Richard Sherman here, could be. I won't give him that title yet, but that size and length is definitely something that you look for in a corner if you can have it. And then Jeremiah McGill and Brennan Bailey both had interceptions in the spring game. They'll both get some rotation time as well. I think the defensive backs, there's a lot of guys that can make plays. It'll definitely be a little bit of a rotation, but Isaiah Rutherford will probably lock down that corner room as CB1, and then Teray Powell definitely at safety as well. And then those Vipers, again, I hate to go back to them again, but they're in the pass game. They're covering guys, tight ends, receivers over the middle. They're huge in the DB / linebacker room. It's hard to give them an exact title.
So they did bring in a transfer from Notre Dame, Ryan Barnes. What kind of role do you expect to see from him in 2024?
He's another guy that I think will be in the rotation. Another guy with really good size, 6'2" at corner. They seem to bring in a lot of guys with size. Even Lake Ellis is a bigger guy compared to most corners, maybe. So Ryan Barnes will definitely make some plays. I think he'll get some playing time as well. He'll definitely be in the rotation. He even made a couple pass breakups in the spring game, I believe. He'll definitely be out there. I'm sure that they'll keep a good rotation. It's hard to tell in the spring. They get a lot of rotation, all these guys. So I think him and Lake Ellis will probably be out there a lot of the time. But I think Ryan Barnes is a guy that, with his size, again, like Deshaun Watkins, if he can use that 6'2" frame to his benefit, it'll be a good thing for the team.
If you had to pick a defensive player to have a breakout type season in 2024, who would that be?
I mentioned him before. Lake Ellis just really was flashing to me. Every time I saw him, he was taking on Anthony Simpson, taking on Jaquan Gibson. It didn't matter what receiver you put against him. He was playing physical at the line, physical at the catch point, swatting away balls, picking off balls. He was all over the place and wasn't getting thrown out a lot because he was just basically draped on a defender as much as possible. And even in the 7-on-7s, when it's hard to defend for that long because you don't have an offensive line against the quarterback, he was making plays. And it's just, I think, honestly, Lake Ellis is going to be one of the superstars of this defense if he can keep up what he's doing over the spring. Now, it's very different, obviously. Spring is very different than the fall, and it'll be important for him to carry what he's done over the course of the spring into that. But I think if I had to pick one right now, he's definitely the most impressive guy I've seen.